Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Sue Edward and I'm leading the workshop on So You Want to Be a Candidate. This will get you started into learning about how to run as a candidate in the state of Missouri. I am the Elections Committee Chair for the Kansas City Heart of America Green Party chapter. So we're going to discuss running for office in the state of Missouri. We have a second workshop coming up on March 14th at noon at the Bluford Library, and hopefully you can join us in person. And if you have questions, my contact information is on there. You can also reach us through our website or Facebook and let us know. Okay, we're gonna kind of break this into two parts. The first part is what I like to call the boring stuff. This is all of the legalese. How do I file? When do I file? Where do I file? How much is it gonna cost me? And then the second part will be the fun stuff. This is talking to your constituents, running for office, getting your message out. How do you be the candidate? We're not going to talk about presidential, and we're not talking about local elections. So if you're interested in school board, you might pick up some good information here, but keep in mind that the filing dates and so on don't apply to that. And then a disclaimer, this is an introductory overview, not an authoritative guide. So basically it's just some information that I was able to dig up through research and Googling and use it as a starting point. Your authoritative information is going to come from the Federal Elections Committee or the Missouri Elections Committee. So some resources for you if you're running for a federal office, the Federal Elections Commission, go to their website. They have lots of good information. Also how to contact them by email or phone. They're very helpful. And also the State Ethics Commission has a couple different pages you might want to look at, and also the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State actually oversees the elections themselves. And then for strategic information, the U.S. Green Party hosts webinars for candidates. Now they don't have any currently scheduled, but I'm assuming they'll pick them up again. They do them every year. That is the website where you can go and actually see some recordings of previous ones. And that's just like a screenshot from one of the previous ones that they put on. So it would be things like how to be a treasurer, how to get your message out, how to craft your platform, and so on. So there's a lot of good information out there. And then also, you can contact the Missouri Green Party. And then also there's a book. This is, obviously it's written by Democrats. Paul Wellstone was a progressive Democrat in the U.S. Senate. He died in a plane crash, but the Wellstone Foundation lives on. This book was written in 2008, so it's a little dated, especially when it comes to things about, there was no social media back then, and websites were still kind of primitive. But a lot of the strategies and stuff, it's good information, even though it's geared toward Democrats, it's still good practical information. The book's available on Amazon, but you can download the PDF for free, and there's numerous sites that have it available, so you can just kind of search for that. Okay, what offices are coming up for election in November? All of the U.S. House, so U.S. House of Representatives, all the districts, the Governor of Missouri, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, Secretary of State, Treasurer, State Senate, but the odd number districts, and then all of the State House districts. The ones that have an asterisk next to them, as a party, one of our candidate for one of those offices must get at least 2% of the overall vote for us to maintain our ballot status for an additional 4 years. If not, we will lose our ballot status, and then we would have to start petitioning and pretty much start over. The ones that are green highlights, we have at least one person interested in running for those offices. Ideally, we'd like to have somebody run for all of them. That would increase our chances of getting the 2%, but we definitely need to focus our efforts on the ones that are most likely to get us that 2%. Okay, am I eligible? There's different laws regarding eligibility for these various offices. There is no Senate race, so I'll skip that one. But if you consider running for the House of Representatives, you have to be at least 25. You have to have been a citizen for 7 years, so you don't have to be born here. You could be a naturalized citizen. You have to be a resident of the state, but there's no requirements to actually live in the district that you're seeking to represent. So if you want to represent the district in Joplin, but you live in Kansas City, okay. There is no law that says you have to.
Wow, didn't know that.
Wow.
I know, it's
You don't have to live there.
crazy, counterintuitive. For governor, you have to be at least 30, you have to be a citizen for 15 years, you have to be a resident for 10 years, a state resident for 10 years. Lieutenant governor, same requirements. Secretary of State, you have to be a citizen and a resident for 1 year. Attorney General has an additional requirement that you have to be licensed to practice law in the state of Missouri. So we need to find a practicing attorney, or it could be a retired attorney, but somebody who's licensed if we want to put somebody into, as a candidate. Treasurer, state senator, you have to be at least the age of 30, Missouri voter for 3 years, and you have to live in that actual district for at least 1 year. And state house, similar, it's a little lower as far as age and number of years.
Do you have any age requirements for attorney general or treasurer?
No. And I didn't find anything, this came from the state's website, nothing in here about state auditor. Now, it's not up for election this year, but there's no requirements apparently, or they forgot it. And they go on, it keeps going as far as like, if you wanna run for county executive or whatever, I mean, they have all these requirements and laws, but, yeah, apparently you could be 12 years old and run for treasurer, apparently. There's additional requirements for state offices, especially when it comes to taxes. You cannot be delinquent in your taxes. That includes income taxes or property taxes, or you can't be an officer of a corporation that's delinquent in taxes. You cannot be guilty of a federal felony or a state felony or a felony in another state or any crime in another state that's considered a felony in Missouri. So even if it's a misdemeanor, let's say in New York, it might be a felony here. I can't think of one, but that's just what their law says. Okay. If you're going to have staff or volunteer staff or paid staff, if you only have one, it should be your treasurer. This is the person who's going to track all of the money, so your donations and your expenses. They're going to prepare and submit all the financial filing reports because there are ongoing requirements around that. And ideally, it's somebody other than the candidate. The candidate should focus on campaigning and not having to deal with the tedious record keeping. So if you have one, that should be the first person. You could have others, but that should be your first person. Okay, the first thing you're gonna need to do is get a tax identification number. Sometimes this is called an employer identification number, so TIN or EIN, you might hear it referred to. It's free, but you will have to submit your social security number to get it. There's 3 ways. You can call the IRS, plan to be on hold for, could be an hour, hour and a half. But once you talk to someone, it's less than 5 minutes, so that's probably not the best way to do it. There's a form you could print out and then send it in, or you can do it online. And I was double checking the website today and realized, oh, you can only do it during certain, during business hours online, which
Why?
defeats the point of online.
Just go into the queue for the next business day.
That makes no sense to me, but anyway, so yeah, I recommend doing it online. It's super easy, although it's slightly confusing because these are the screens you're going to see. So on the first one, the upper left, where it says begin applications, you want to click on that. And then to the right of that, you want view additional types, because you're not a corporation, you're not a sole proprietor or a state or whatever. And then in the third, it's going to say political organization, and then you're going to get a confirmation pop up, so just go ahead and click continue. And then on the fourth screen, in the middle, it says banking purposes, so you want to select that. Once you do that and continue, it's going to be things like name and address, the name of your campaign committee, and so on. So it's easy from there, but just getting to that point, these screens are a little intimidating and confusing. It's going to tell you that you need to fill out these IRS forms. We do not. As a candidate, there's already financial filing that's required of you, so the IRS says you don't have to do IRS filings because you're doing your Ethics Commission filings. So don't let that scare you because you don't have to do it. Okay, so now that you have your TIN, you can open a bank account. Credit unions are a good option. I would find a place that's close to both you and your treasurer, that does not charge you monthly fees or service charges, ideally. All you really need is a checking account. You don't need to open up, unless they require it. Some of them will say you have to have a savings with $5 in it, and then they'll give you a checking. And some of them have, you know, Investors Advantage and money markets, and you don't need any of that. You really just need a checking account. You do have to have the TIN. The bank won't open your account without it. And you want to give access to the campaign treasurer so they have the ability to sign the checks. So if the two of you go together to the bank to open the account, then they can get the signature on file right then and there. And then you can get printed checks. You don't have to, because there is, if you're gonna use online banking, you can make payments, you know, like, and the bank will either do an electronic payment, or they'll actually print the check and mail it for you. You save the postage. But if they give you free checks, you can get some checks, but it's probably not necessary. But you do want some debit cards. Treasurer should have one. Candidate should probably have one. Okay, if you're a state candidate, you have to file an affidavit of tax payments. It's basically saying that you're not delinquent in your taxes. And you can get it notarized and make 2 copies. The original goes to Department of Revenue. One of your copies is gonna go with your filing to be a candidate. And on that one, you can scribble out your social security number if you want to. And then keep the other copy for yourself. Okay, so now that you've done all of this kind of prep work, now you can file for office. The filing is between 8 a.m. February 25th through 5 p.m. March 31st. So it's at, what, 5 weeks? It's over a month. But you, what we'd like to do, and it's not mandatory, but it'd be kind of cool if there was a way that all of the green candidates from around the state kind of filed at the same time. We did that last time, did a little photo op, we invited the media, no media showed up, but we put it on our website, so we had our own little kind of press release.
Do you need to have, before you do some of that, do you need to have like a post office box and like a email specific?
I would recommend doing the post office box, and that's a good question, and maybe I should change the sequence of steps, because you will need to put an address when you get your TIN and when you open the bank account. Now, it could be your personal bank account, or your personal address, I mean, but then on other things, you can put a P.O. box. But the address that's on your checks, if you're gonna do printed checks, you know, you probably want your P.O. box on there. So yeah, if you wanna get that first, you certainly could. And then what was the other thing you asked about? Oh, an email address?
Yeah.
Since you're not really putting an email on anything public at this point, I take that back. On the filing, I'm not sure if that goes public. When I filed in South Carolina, your email was made public at the elections board. So yeah, that's probably a good idea. And you can get a free Gmail one, you know, joecraneforsenate@gmail.com or wherever it's gonna be.
Hey, when you file, you can file at any county, in any county, you have to go to Jefferson City?
Yes, and that's,
You have,
that's live.
is that for all, you know, even for state, like little state house and house? Okay, you gotta go to
Yes.
Jeff City,
Yes.
no matter what, okay.
Yes,
The candidate has to go to Jeff City,
yes.
okay.
The only exceptions are if you're physically disabled or active military. Then you can do it and notarize, you know, you can do it by mail, but they have to be notarized.
So I know, like, running for county office, you can do it at the
County office is different, so that's what I meant when I said like school board and city council, county council, that kind of stuff. They have their own filing requirements and laws, so we're not gonna really get into this today, because none of them are open in November,
Okay.
that I'm aware of at least. There might be like a little special election in a school board in Platte City or something, but, yeah, as far as what we're talking about now, it's more of the state level stuff.
Okay.
We can do that in a future workshop.
Sure.
So you do have to go to Jefferson City, so again, if you're gonna do it with other Greens, let's carpool, or get on the train. You can ride the train to Jefferson City, that'd be kind of fun. What's it gonna cost me to file? There are filing fees, for the US Senate and House, it's $200 and $100 respectively. Governor and anything at that level, so, Secretary of State, Lieutenant Governor, so on, are $200. State Senate $100, State House $50. So this is why it's a good idea to have your campaign account already open. The filing fees, if you pay at the time you file, then they will send the money to the state party, and the state party will eventually send it back to your campaign if you are a member of the party. Now, if somebody else files as a green who's not a member, we're gonna keep their fees. But the filing fees, actually, the state does not keep them. They go to the party, and then the party can decide what to do with them. If you pay your filing fee in advance, you can get a receipt, and then use that receipt at the time of filing. That is okay. And our state treasurer, because these are all kind of state level offices, the filing fees will go through the state party as opposed to our local chapter. And Joe Civittini is our treasurer. He said he will try to be at Jefferson City on either the first day or whatever we make our green filing day, but he travels for his job, so he can't commit at this point. But one thing you can do, and he did this with our presidential candidates, is you write the check, you take a picture of it, you email it to him, he'll write a receipt and email you a picture of the receipt, you can print it out, and then use that for your filing. And that was good enough for, in the past, so that is okay. But arrange it with him in advance, don't just like email him a picture of a check and, you know, just send him an email, he's a nice guy, or you can, you know, if he is planning to go, maybe coordinate that with him. Okay, so just because you're filing as a green doesn't mean you're gonna be endorsed by the Greens. So if you file and nobody else files for that office, your name will be on the ballot. If multiple people file for that office, then your names are on the primary ballot in August. And then the winner of the primary will be on the November ballot. But to actually be endorsed by us, you have to request it from the state party, and we do vote on it at our state convention, which will be held this summer. Don't have a date or location yet, but it will be in the summer. If you get endorsed, that means, you know, we'll put you on our website, we'll put you in email blasts, we'll try to volunteer. If we have some money, we'll donate to your campaign. So there are, you know, we want to make sure a true green runs, because state law does not prevent anybody who's not a green from filing. And we had that in the past where county executive, we had a non-green file, and they lost in the primary to a real green, which is, you know, saved us the embarrassment of having a non-green on the November ballot. So that's why it's important that we have people running in all of these offices. Okay, so financial reporting. So once you're filed, once you're a candidate and you start doing candidate things, there are laws concerning financial reporting. You must get the contributor's name, address, employer, and occupation. Try to avoid anonymous donations. It's gonna happen. Someone's just you're gonna go to an event and pass the hat kind of thing happens, but there are limits as to how much you can track or you can collect anonymously, so just try to avoid it. So if you have pieces of paper with the fields already printed and they can just fill in the blanks, name, address, employer, occupation, that saves you the trouble, and put amount on there too. If you get a check, make a copy of it before you do the deposit. It's just a good thing to have, or, you know, take a photo of it. Just kind of like just a backup copy. Any expense, anytime you spend money, get a receipt, as long as it's campaign related. As a best practice, if the candidate and the staff use their own money and get reimbursed by the treasurer, there's always an audit trail. If you're spending your own money, then you have incentive to get your receipts into the treasurer, so the treasurer can include it in the filings, because otherwise you're out of that money, out of your pocket. That just keeps it kind of clean, and it's less likely for the treasurer to look at the, you know, bank statement once a month and say, we don't match, we're off, and then pulling your hair out, if you ever balanced a checkbook, you know, it's the same thing. And then also for mileage, and I was trying to look this up this morning and I couldn't find what the current mileage amount is, so that's one thing you will have to check up on. But if you're, especially at the state level races, you're gonna be doing campaign events all over the state. So if you're going to something in St. Louis, that's a 500-mile round trip. So mileage, I wanna say it's like, what was it last time?
50 cents a mile.
50 cents a mile or something like that. A lot of times it's cheaper to rent a car. So it would be the cost of your car rental plus gas or mileage. You can't do both mileage and gas.
So you have to report all travel as 50
As
cents
campaign
per hour.
expenses,
Like
whatever it cost you. But,
Well, it costs, it's over $2 a gallon right now. So it depends on how fuel efficient your car is. You have to figure all that.
Well, and
yeah, but to be honest, 50 cents a mile, I mean, you can go 4 miles, that's $2.
Yeah.
No car is gonna get 4 miles a gallon. So it is, yeah, the candidate's gonna make money on it, but it's supposed to be wear and tear, the cost of the wear on your tires and depreciation because your mileage has increased and on and on and on, and the oil and all the stuff that it supposedly uses. And they come up with a formula and say it's this much per mile.
So that's 50 cents or that's.
I don't know the exact amount, I was trying to find it this morning and I wasn't able to.
Okay.
But it's somewhere in that ballpark.
And that's on the Missouri Election Commission website usually?
Usually, and also the federal, but I couldn't find it, you may have to call,
Okay.
or we can call for you.
it's gonna change regardless.
Right.
I think they said it once for the year. I think it's fixed at least till next year. But your treasurer or somebody can check up on that. Okay, there are thresholds that say you don't have to file if you don't spend or earn or receive in contributions under a certain dollar amount. However, if you hit that threshold and you have to start filing, you gotta go back to an account to the first penny. You can't just say, oh, well, because it's a cumulative thing. So I hit the $500 threshold in August, I'll just file for the August filing. No, you gotta go back to the first day that you had any kind of financial transactions. So keep your records ongoing. If you never have to file, you never have to file, but this, believe me, you don't wanna recreate this after the fact, because it's very difficult.
Is it different, the threshold for federal and state?
Yeah, and we'll get to that. It does vary by office. And then once you file, so let's say, in June you hit the filing threshold, but in July you don't have any money going in or out. You still gotta file. Once you file the first time, you have to always file until you do your closing report. And that's after the election and when you actually shut down your campaign, then you have a final report. But you gotta file up until that point, even if it's 0. And then the other thing you have to do is register your committee once you hit that threshold. So in federal candidates, it's $5,000 in contributions or expenditures. And state candidates, it's either $500 or if a single contributor gives you $325 or more.
Wow.
If you intentionally say, I'm gonna stay below this threshold, so even if someone offered to give you a donation and you refuse it because you wanna stay below the threshold, you still have to file an exemption. So there's paperwork that still needs to happen. So once you hit your threshold, you have to register your committee. And with federal candidates, there's, use that link, and then state candidates, use the other one. But it basically wants to know your committee name, and this is probably the same name that you used when you got your TIN and that you used when you opened your bank account, and like, Joe Gray for Senate from the state of Missouri or whatever it's gonna be. And then you just fill out the paperwork for that, or the online forms. And then you're like legally recognized. And, your financial filing reports will be online. It's all public record from this point forward. Or actually, your filing point forward is public record. Pay attention to the deadlines and do not miss them. Absolutely do not miss them. There was a Democratic candidate for US Senator in South Carolina a few years ago, and she did not get her filings in, and she was fined like $10,000. So do not miss them. If you, for some reason, have a problem, like, I don't have all the receipts or whatever, file it anyway. You can always amend it, as long as it's filed on time. That is, absolutely crucial. And this is typically the responsibility of the treasurer. Okay. So financial reporting, it's for federal candidates, based on how much money or in what level, it's electronic filing is mandatory, It's optional below that level, but believe me, you don't wanna do it by paper. Been there, done that, don't do that. There is a software, it's called FEC file or FEC file. You download it, and then you use that to enter in the names and address of your contributors, and then, you know, where you spent your money and the dates and all that stuff. It'll prepare the report for you, and then you can upload it. It's not hard to use, but it's definitely not intuitive. So if anybody is running for federal office in this election cycle, it's Congress, I can help you use the software or help your treasurer use the software. Similar for the state, I have not actually seen the state software because unless you're actually an active campaign committee, you don't see it. You have to have the name and password that the state sent you and all that, so I have not yet seen it. Have you seen it, Nathan? Did you have to use it for county? Or were you below the threshold?
I was below the threshold.
Okay. I assume it's similar, where you put in the name and address of the person who gave you contribution, their employer, their occupation, date, and the amount, and your expenses would be like, you know, I spent $30 at Office Max getting photocopies, or whatever it is, and you put the date, time, address, and so on. So it's just more tedious stuff, but you have to do it. Okay, so as far as contributions go, as Greens, we take in contributions from individuals. They have to be U.S. citizens or Green Party PACs or other Green Party chapters. So if the Green Party of New York wanted to send you a donation, that's cool. Again, you gotta get name, address, employer, occupation. A gift in kind is a non-monetary gift. So somebody might donate office supplies, or they might drive you to a campaign event. When we had our state convention last summer, you know, people paid for the hotel of a candidate. That would be a gift in kind to the candidates, and they would have to report that. Candidate out-of-pocket spending could be one of two things. You can either be a gift in kind, the candidate is not gonna get reimbursed, or a loan. So you might wanna have some stuff. You might say, I'm gonna put $100 in at the time I open my bank account, and that's gonna be kind of the seed money to get me going. It's whether or not you have expectations of being paid back. So if it's a loan, you expect eventually you're gonna get enough contributions, and at the end of the campaign, you'll have at least enough left over to pay yourself back.
How would you designate a loan?
It's in the filing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when money comes in, you have to tell it it's either a donation, a gift in kind, or a loan. Okay, so the contributions are cumulative per donor and per election. The primary election is counted separately from the general election in November. So if you have a opponent in the primary, then your filing and all that, or your contribution limits start over after the primary if you win. If you don't have an opponent, you're not really in the primary, then it's just, you know, the full cycle. On the federal, $2,800, again, this is per contributor. So, you know, Chris, if you wanted to run for Congress, I can't give you $3,000, sorry.
What?
I'll give you 2,800.
I give you 2,800. And then state, you see the various levels. If someone gives you a contribution in the name of a child 14 or under, that goes under the parent. So parents can't try to get around that limit. But that doesn't stop like spouses from contributing separately. So they're counted separate.
But man, if they get to be 15,
They can do it, according to the state.
That's wild.
I think you can still get married at 14 too here. So again, if you're filing for a loan, that's considered a liability that your campaign is gonna carry until it's paid off. Okay, so there's rules regarding what is an expense. Repaying back a loan is an expense. Office supplies, administrative costs, this would include things like getting bumper stickers printed or making photocopies or that kind of stuff. Costs to put on a fundraising event or a watch party. So if you're gonna have a party and you gotta buy some snacks or that kind of thing, that's a legitimate expense. Any advertising that you purchase, travel if it's for a campaign event. So even if you're just gonna say, hey, I'm gonna go hang out in Columbia when the students come back to school and just kinda hand out flyers, that counts.
Sue, is there some limit to how, I mean, if you're just driving across town, you're driving 5 miles to go to an event, is that, you
If
have
it's
to?
a campaign event and you
you-
choose to claim it, I mean,
Do
if
you-
you don't claim it, you don't claim it, but you can, it's qualified to be claimed.
But I mean, are you supposed to? Like, if you're a candidate, you
Yeah.
know, every time you move from one place to another and you're going,
If you're going specifically for a campaign event, yeah.
and you have to do it as round trip. So if I go
Yeah.
if I go 1 mile down the road, I gotta.
But if you stop at Starbucks on the way home and it's another mile in the wrong direction, you can't count that. I mean, in the strictest sense. Does it really happen in real life? Probably not.
But they really don't care if it's in town, do they? They really are looking for the out-of-town stuff, cause I didn't count in-town stuff.
To be honest, I don't know. If it's legitimate and you claim it, then that's good. If it's not legitimate, you can't just say, oh, well, I'm gonna go to work today and claim it as a campaign expense. If you're not actively campaigning, no. If you're going to pick up, you know, go to a print shop and pick up the bumper stickers that you ordered, I think that does count.